Well, I'm kind of going back on my word by saying I'm going back to my papercraft figurines. I still am. But I do want to upload another video tech related because it's again stuff I'm into. And I want to show off my recent purchase. This Dell Precision, what is it? A Dell Precision Tower 7910. This is a Xeon based workstation. And prior to me purchasing it, I'm using this as my secondary rig. I made sure that the games I asked this thing to play is capable of playing, and it is. I took my 3070 into FreeGeek today as I was volunteering, and I was able to test this machine out with that card to see what would happen, and it worked completely fine. So with that said, I might as well show it off. So bulk standard DVD drive. I was looking to upgrading this to a Blu-ray drive, or maybe swapping this out to like a multimedia card slot and have a slimline Blu-ray drive right here, but it depends on what I find and whatnot. I don't think I need a 4K Blu-ray player because I don't need 4K Blu-rays, but then again I do have a 4K TV, so But with that said, I have another slot right here. This could be for a slimline or I believe for extra ports. I can't remember. Here's the power button, headphone and mic jack, USB 3, USB 2, and a bunch of ventilation. Here's the inside of my computer. As you can tell, it's a dual slot, so I can add another Xeon to this thing if I wanted to. It has currently a 6-core 12-thread Xeon from 2014. So it is dated, but it's 6 cores, 12 threads, so it's still a fairly capable computer. With that said, I gotta bring up the actual text sheet for this thing. It's a Xeon E5 2620 Revision 3. So I can get another one of these for like $5 off eBay. I gotta spend $50 for a cooler. So about $55, $60 to get myself a second Xeon in this thing. I'll probably have to buy some extra RAM because I'm pretty certain the second CPU is not going to function right without having RAM. So it's probably going to be like $100 worth of stuff to get this thing fully decked out with a second Xeon. But for the time being, one Xeon is more than enough. So when it comes to storage on this thing, it's fairly decked out. It has a 500 gig Samsung SSD drive and a 2 terabyte Seagate drive. And luckily my tech over at FreeGeek knows exactly how to do this. Again, that's why she's paid. So bay number 1 has the SATA drive. If I can pull it out. And of course it doesn't want to come out. There we go. Here is the SATA drive that it came with. I don't know if this is from the factory or if this is what she put in. It kind of looks like it came from FreeGeek, but it doesn't have any of the actual stickers, so I don't know. Here is the second drive. This one's just a standard 3.5-inch spool drive. Again, it's a 2 terabyte Seagate. I don't know what year this one was made, but it looks basically still mint. So I'm going to put my trust in the Seagate drive and that it's still good. And the nice thing is I have 2 more extra slots on this thing to add even more drives. I can add 2 more drives right here, which is what I'm going to end up doing. Here's the DVD drive itself. I can also get a little bracket that converts this 5.5 to a 5.5 bay that can hold 4 2.5-inch drives. But since I want to have some type of Blu-ray capable computer, that's what I'm going to use this, or that's what I'm going to convert this drive to. So it's going to be like maybe like $200 worth of upgrade components to this thing for me to get it fully functioning the way I want. But again, for the time being, it's more than adequate. Now I do have to do a few modifications to this thing, unfortunately. This little piece right here has to be removed. I believe this is the original like a graphic card holder or something, but it actually stops the 3070 from fitting. And I had to remove something else. This little bracket right here, I had to remove this because it was too thick and it wasn't allowing the side panel to close because the actual power cables for the card were actually hitting this. And even with this removed, it just barely allows it to close because the cables are definitely touching. So I may actually put some type of little like tape over this thing because it is a tad sharp. But I am using cable mod cables. I know those are really well built cables, but I'm gonna put some duct tape over here and just make sure I don't cut the cables and whatnot. And I am only using a 3070, and this only uses a 6-pin supplemental PCI. So with that said, I'm gonna cut that little piece off, that little shroud I need to cut, and then come back. Oh yeah, one more thing I forgot to show off. The power supply. It's a big power supply. 1,300 watt power supply to be in fact. So I could probably even run my 4080 in this thing if my 4080 could actually fit in it. Obviously my 4080 will not fit in this chassis, but it has a power supply capable of handling it. It has these little ducts right here that I also need to figure out how to remove. They're there for like if you have like little cards and whatnot right here, probably for like 10 gig NICs and whatnot. But since I'm not doing that, I don't need this shroud. I need this removed that way so I can have as much cooling going to the 3070 as possible. So with that said, I'm going to cut this little piece off and come back. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, what are these meant for? These are meant for covering up the RAM sticks so they don't overheat and whatnot. So these are absolutely necessary, especially if I'm going to add in a second CPU right here. So, like I said, I'll come back when I get this cut. Alright, got it cut out, and there's a little hole in there. So I'm guessing that little hole is meant to vent air to something else. So my question is, should I actually leave it there or not? I'm going to cover it up because I think it's meant to direct some air over to here. But since I'm planning on removing these, I shouldn't need it. And plus it'll allow me to have more air going to the actual RAM sticks and whatnot. Now granted, it would be very nice if I could actually fully populate all the DIMMs on this thing. But I really don't have to do that. But yeah, I'm going to get this patched up and see about removing these. And just like that, I got my 3070 in the computer itself. And overall, cable management's not too atrocious. I mean, do I like this spaghetti crap right here? No, no one does. But at least I have easy access to the extra cables for if I want to somehow upgrade this thing down the road to like a better video card or a video card that may have better cables, like a full-size PCI like these guys right here. If the 3070s weren't so expensive, I would actually get like an EVGA one that's maybe like a little bit more smaller and has the actual plugs like right here. But it may not work because these cables are actually pretty big in their own right. And this right here just barely clears the door with the little piece of plastic removed. So with that said, now is the fun part of actually getting this thing set back up where I have my current main rig. And another thing I do want to mention, there is no exhaust right here. So I'm going to use the Corsair fans I got, and I'm going to use one of the RGB hubs, like the little cheap one or something like that, and just have like a little fan right here. Now yes, I could probably tap into this right here by using a converter and whatnot. But this guy's meant for this guy right here, and I don't really want to use this to cool the back right here when I want to have a separate fan for this. If anything, I might just find like a Molex, like a 3-pin Molex or something like that fan, and just have it run at like maybe 5 or 12 volts depending on the speed. And yeah, actually I got some fans that are actually pretty quiet at full speed, so let me go grab them and see if they'll fit. Alright, so 120 didn't work. This isn't a 120, but I tried. This is the next smaller size. I believe this is 92. And the 92, even with the case open sensor removed, does not fit. So I think I need something like 80 somethings. So that also goes into why I should get a second processor right here so I can have at least something for exhaust. But more than likely, I'll just come up with something down the road for a back exhaust. I know it will work like this in the end, but I would like to have some form of back exhaust. Obviously, I did put the duct tape here like I was also mentioning, just forgot to show it. Yes, you may cringe. I know putting a computer on a carpet, even a workstation, is very cringe, but for the time being, I don't actually have a plank of wood big enough for this thing. So for the time being, it's kind of staying on the floor. So with that said, give me a second. Sorry about that family stuff. With that said, it will take a little bit to post. It is a workstation after all. So I think I'll come back when it posts. And of course, when I stop recording, it posts. So it's still initializing crap, but it'll eventually get to the actual login screen and whatnot. So I'll come back when that happens. And here is the desktop for a FreeGeek Arkansas setup machine. It's fairly basic, just as it should be. These two right here are my additions because I was testing this thing prior to purchasing. But when it comes to FreeGeek, we install Chrome, Firefox, and LibreOffice. And of course, we make sure everything's up to date and whatnot before it actually gets, before you buy it and whatnot. Since I'm a volunteer, it has to go through our tech first before it goes to sale and whatnot. With that said, this one was personally put together by our tech. So I trust this computer is going to be very stable for the long term. So with that said, if I actually go to here and here, you can see I have a boot drive right here, the 500 gig SATA drive, and the 2 terabyte spool drive. With that said, I'm going to basically nuke both drives and start this computer fresh. So I'm going to go do all that off camera because it's boring to install Windows 10, and I will come back when I get this thing reset back up. Well, the BIOS is fairly newish at least. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to tell it to boot to the SATA, my little flash drive. I can enable legacy. This thing can support Windows 7, but since I'm using this as my main computer, oh, I even have Thunderbolt support. Interesting. I'm not going to use Windows 7. A bunch of link speed stuff. I have such a Gen 3 as it should be. Leave that Gen 3. System logs, maintenance, virtual support. I should actually make sure it's enabled. Trusted execution. I think I'll leave that off. We got post behavior. Power management. Let's see. Is there any option for fan? Oh, it can be set to low and auto. Okay. I'll just leave them out. I'll just leave it out auto for right now. Got performance and whatnot. Do I have anything I need to change over? I'm not going to leave that alone. Leave that alone. I don't know what that does, so I'm going to leave it. Leave that. Let's see about secure boot. It is disabled. Since this thing does not support Windows 7, or not Windows 7, Windows 11, and I'm not going to have Windows 11 on this thing, I'm going to keep secure boot disabled. We got security stuff and whatnot. 1.2, so even if Windows 11 was supported on this thing, or well, still it wouldn't work. Primary has set to auto. Alright, so the BIOS is halfway decent. Maintenance crap and system errors and whatnot. Overall, it's not a bad little deal and whatnot. And looks like it's just keyboard not found, cover please remove, blah, blah, blah. Wow, all the way back in 19. This is probably before we got it, considering this is prior when we more than likely got it. So with that said, I'm going to hit apply, exit, and it should post to the thumb drive. So, like I said before, I'll come back when I get Windows 10 installed on this thing because nothing's going to be different from this thing, or when it comes to Windows install and whatnot. Alright, Windows is now installed. Next step is to install all the updates and all the drivers. That's going to take a little while. I'm in the final steps of reinstalling Windows 10 or getting updates and whatnot. And all the optional updates, just look at how many. Yeah, boy, that's probably gonna be at least 15 minutes worth of waiting. And this again has an SSD, but still, it's gonna take a while. Alright, all the drivers are up to date. I just tested Minecraft because I wanted something simple before I go to bed. And so far, the computer is working completely fine. It is a tad slower than I would like, but then again, as we expected, considering the processor that's in here. Also, could be due to the SSD being on the way out. I don't know how old the SSD is, but I'm pretty certain it's old because it looks like it's probably like a second generation SSD from Samsung, maybe a third. And flash storage does not have the longevity of like a hard drive would. So eventually the hard drive will, or not hard drive, the SSD will have to be replaced. And if I do, I'll be upgrading it to some probably like a 1 terabyte or a 2 terabyte Samsung 2.5 inch. But for right now, I'll make do with what I got. I will do a follow up on this computer showing what I can do for gaming because I did buy this thing, though it can do games and whatnot. So expect a video like that around maybe 3 weeks from now because I still need to set this thing up and actually utilize it for a while first before I actually do those impressions or do that actual video. So that's pretty much it for this one. I just wanted to just show it off.